These days you are getting a lot of new squadron vehicles in War Thunder, and I see a lot of players do mistakes when researching them or buying them even. And so it's time to do a proper squadron vehicle tutorial for year 2025. I will tell you how you can get the squadron vehicles, answer some frequently asked questions, and also tell you what mistakes to avoid. And lastly, we will rank every squadron vehicle. So let's do it. To get the squadron vehicles, you need to join the squadron. To do so, go to this area, and here you can see all the squadrons. Here you can just join whichever squadron you like. If you check this thing here, and then select any squadron with the check here, you will be automatically immediately accepted. Then you will see this page. For me, this is just a random squadron I joined, but it is an active squadron, and so I am staying here for now. Well, at least until I have enough subscribers to create my own squadron. On this tab, you can check all the squadron vehicles and also start researching them. To get the research points, you need to check your activity. This activity is calculated and reset every 3 days. And every 3 days, you yourself need to score 20,000 score. That means the score that you get normally in every match, so you just have to play. Furthermore, your squadron also needs to be active, and most of your members need to get that amount of score. And so if you and your squadron are active, you will get 20,000 squadron research points every 3 days. Now the question might be, how long it will take me to research one of these vehicles? To calculate the number of days, you first need to divide the total research point cost by 20,000 and then multiply the result by 3. And voila! You have the exact number of days it will take. That is, if you get 20,000 research points every 3 days, of course. You can also buy the squadron vehicles for the Golden Eagles, but it is a very bad idea to do so, and I will soon tell you why. Now, what can the squadron vehicles do and how they function? Well, you will be disappointed, because the squadron vehicles are actually the worst type of vehicles in the game. Why? Well, firstly, you don't get any premium bonuses, of course. Well, of course, some people still think that these function like premium vehicles, but no, you don't get any premium bonuses. They function basically the same as any of your Tech 3 vehicles. So no research modifications, nothing. Furthermore, because they function like a normal vehicle, you can't grind the whole Tech 3 with them. Squadron vehicle, like any other non-premium vehicle, can only grind at the same rank or one rank that is below or above their rank. So to give you an example, it's totally useless for me to research the Swedish T-ATU because I would be only able to effectively research with it the rank 7 and the rank 8. However, I am only at rank 4. And finally, in the beginning I mentioned that the squadron vehicles are the worst type of vehicles. And that is due to the fact that they function as a normal, non-premium vehicle, however they are also unaffected by War Thunder sales. And so you can't get them at half price, and you can't even buy the talisman for them at the half price. Which is, yeah, pretty sad. Most of the squadron vehicles are, however, fairly strong, and you can effectively research them for free basically. And so question is, which one should you get first? You should prioritize getting those that you know that you can effectively use for research or in your lineups. So for example here I am researching the French CV90 because I know that I will soon be at rank 6 and I can use the CV to help me grind there. Especially because I will probably talisman this. Furthermore, the 9.7 is a very good BR for France, and the CV90 fits perfectly there. You might also want to research certain squadron aircrafts if you have tanks for that same BR and you want to use them as a support in ground realistic battles. So to sum it up, when selecting the squadron vehicle, you should always think what you can research with it and where will it fit into your lineup. There are, however, certain squadron vehicles that are just better than the others, and so let's do a tier list with them. The tier list follows what I said previously, and therefore we not only have the S, A, B, C, D rank, but the S rank are the best 3 squadron vehicles, A rank are squadron vehicles that are strong and also useful in your lineups, B vehicles are strong but they don't really have a good lineup to go with them, and then we have the situational and bad squadron vehicles. And with that as said, let's start with Bhishma. Bhishma is an Indian T-90 and it goes straight to the S tier. Bhishma is the lowest sitting T-90 in the game because it has a worse shell than the Soviet T-90, but that also means that you can rely a bit more on your armor, and armor on this thing is excellent. The mobility is fine, the round is more than sufficient, and it also has a great Gen 3 thermals. What's even better is that at 10.7 it fits perfectly into the 10.7 British lineup and it can very nicely complement the Challenger. Bhishma is a very strong and very unique tank and definitely deserves an S tier. Then we have the newly added BMP-2MD, which goes into A tier. BMP-2s are amazing, especially because of their fast-firing 30mm cannon, and even though this one doesn't have a rocket, when playing the Soviet BMP-2 I got most of my kills with the gun anyway, so you won't need it that much. At 8.7 it also fits perfectly into an already very powerful 8.7 Swedish lineup. Then we have the Japanese RCVP and this is going into D tier. It might not be the worst vehicle, but you have almost the same in the tech tree, so why would you waste your research points on it? Next up is the Israeli Magach 6B Gal and this is going also to D tier. And that is because of the same reasons as the Japanese vehicle, you just don't need more Magachs at 9.3. Then we have the Australian M1A1 AIM and this is going to B tier. The AIM modification has a weaker round than the other 11.7 Abrams, but instead has a 3 Gen thermals. And so it is fairly good, but you already have 2 other Abrams at 11.7, so you don't really need to prioritize it. Next up is the BMP-2M and this is going straight to S tier. The BMP-2M does everything as its older brother does, but much better. This thing is just stacked with armament and modifications. You have the same great cannon, much better 4 ready-to-shoot ATGMs, APFS-DS rounds, thermal sights, and we can't forget the amazing grenade launcher. This IFV also fits perfectly into an already strong 10.3 Soviet lineup. Now we have the CV9035 and that goes to A tier. This is a very good support vehicle with a great thermals, 35mm Bushmaster, and it fits amazingly into the French 9.7 lineup. Now we have the Polish Leopard 2 and this goes to B tier. This tank on itself is very good, however once again it gets a weaker shell than those Leopards that sits at 12.0. And what's even worse is that this Leopard doesn't have a lineup to go with it, apart from the Canadian Leopard. This Leopard could even be put at C tier because of how unnecessary it is, but because it is still a strong vehicle, I will leave it at B tier. Now we have the Soviet T-80UK and this goes to B tier. It's basically the T-80U that you can find in the tech tree with just an extra electro-optical active protection system. Oh, it also gets the laser warning system. The T-80UK is definitely an upgrade from the standard T-80U variant, and it's definitely a tank you can get if you want to play the 11.7 bat rating with the Soviets. Still, there are other tanks that you can get instead of this. However, out of these 3, I would put the T-80UK at the first place, M1A1 at the second place and the Leopard at the third place. And now we have the Swedish T-80U and this goes to C tier. The T-80U is not even that good on itself. It has a fairly bad thermals and also pretty weak round for 11.3. And what's even worse is that it doesn't have any lineup to go with it. So currently it's pretty much useless. And now on to the M901, which goes into the C tier. This ATGM carrier is very situational. It's not exactly bad, but you need very concrete playstyle to play it, and that playstyle unfortunately doesn't bring you a lot of SL and RP. Its main saving grace is that it fits into the 8.3 US lineup, which is pretty stacked. And now finally we have the Object 122 MT-MC, which goes into B tier. This tank is very strong and very unique, can shoot very strong APFS-DS at 8.7 and also has 4 ready-to-shoot anti-tank missiles. Its main problem is that it doesn't really have a proper lineup, that's why it isn't in A tier. And now we take a look on planes. First up, we have the Thailand F5E, which is located in Japanese tree, and this goes to the A tier. F5E FCU is a very agile fighter that is best used in close quarter engagements. And so main strength of this plane are 2 Python 3 all-aspect missiles. The plane itself sits at 11.0 battle rating, and even though the latest update added a similar version to the Squadron one, the Squadron version is still better. Next we have the German Messerschmitt 262 A1A U1, and this goes also to A tier. This plane is basically like the other 7.0 Messerschmitt 262s, but it has one main advantage over them, and those are these two 30mm cannons. These are the Mark 103 cannons, which have much higher velocity, and you can also use them to attack ground targets. At 7.3 it will be your best German strike aircraft. Next up is the US A4E Early, and this goes also to A tier. You will want to use this plane mainly for ground attacks, because as you can see it can carry a lot of ordnance, and some of those ordnance are guided, so you can use it very effectively in ground RB. And at 9.3 it fits very well into the US 9.3 lineup. Next is the British Sea Harrier, and this goes also to A tier. This plane definitely isn't the strongest and you will need some skill to fly it, however it can carry 4 all-aspect missiles and you can do fairly well even in air RB with it. It doesn't have any guided ordnance, but it has a ballistic computer for rockets and bombs, and so you can attack ground targets fairly effectively. Main strength of this plane is its BR, because at 10.7 it very well complements the 10.7 British lineup, which is honestly pretty amazing. Then we have the newly added Nighthawk, and this goes to C tier. And the main reason it is in C tier is because it's a very unique plane. What concerns its usefulness, well, this plane isn't very useful. It's unusable in air battles, and in ground battles, well, if you aim well, you can get 2 kills with your bombs in each run. It's a very niche aircraft for sure. Next we have the British Firecrest, which goes into B tier. This is quite a rarity among the squadron vehicles. The plane itself is very fast and also has a very powerful engine. Furthermore, it's equipped with 2 50 cals, and these are the M3 50 cals, so the late war or Cold War 50 cals. Overall, you can definitely dominate air battles with this thing, but it's only rank 2 and I wouldn't waste my squadron research points on this. Next up is the Swiss Hunter F58, and this goes to B tier. The plane itself is fairly good in air battles, but that's where its usefulness ends. It can at least carry these missiles that can kill a lot of enemies when they are running away from you. Next up is the Pakistani JF-17, located in Chinese Tech 3, and this goes to S tier. It is a very unique plane, and you can of course play it in air battles as well, however where it truly shines are the ground battles. It can carry a large variety of guided and unguided weaponry, and is perfect as a close air support for the top tier Chinese tanks. It's also very agile and fun to fly. Then we have the Soviet Su-22M3, and this goes to C tier. This plane is very mediocre, and the only reason it isn't in D tier is that you can grind it to support your 10.3 ground lineup. That's the only usefulness this plane really has, in my opinion. And finally, we have the Soviet Su-33, which goes to B tier. All the flankers are very fun to fly, however this one can't carry the Fox 3 missiles, which limits its usability. It's definitely not a bad plane, however you also have other options in your tech tree. Still, you can get this and it can serve as an air support for your ground lineup, or you can grind rank 7 and 8 with it, but that's where its usefulness ends. Now let's quickly talk about helis and ships. I would put both helis on C tier, and that is because in the tech tree there are other helis that can fill their role. I would definitely prefer, however, the Superhind over the JAH. The Superhind was, in my opinion, a great addition to the game. Then we have the HMS Liverpool, which goes to D tier. Not a bad ship, but you have the same one in the tech tree, even though it's a bit weaker version. And you also have a premium version of that same class. Then we have the Japanese Shimakaze, which goes to C tier. This is basically the strongest destroyer Japan has, so it's not that bad. And finally, we have 2 frigates, the German Karl Marx and the Soviet SK-R-7. Both go to the B tier. Both frigates are very strong and can carry rocket launchers, which is pretty fun. Most frigates, however, are outclassed by destroyers, so be careful about that. And this is our final tier list. Let me know what you think about this, subscribe for more, and I will see you next time. Bye!